Welcome to Mazwi Inc. Today I'm joined by Pastor Keith Mawoyo from Overflow Church. Pastor Keith, welcome to the platform.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
The pleasure is all mine.
So good to be here. So we heard so many things about what you are doing, and I think platforms like these are really, really helpful. We need to have conversations like this, and I'm so thankful.
You can say that again. You can say that again. The Lord is helping us. I believe we are moving from glory to glory. Our conversation, it was almost not happening.
so many issues. 3 months or even 4 months. Just trying to find a place where we could really meet. I'm so happy that finally it's actually happening.
Yes, finally, brethren. Today our topic of discussion, I titled this conversation from the message that you preached at one of the men's conference that we attended. When was it? Was it 2017, 2018?
Yeah, it was way back.
Way back,
but that was one of the most profound times that I could say were really life-changing. That just the opportunity to speak to men is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah. It is. And you know, when you look at it, when you think about it, there are really not very many platforms where men issues are discussed.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Especially as compared to females.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
It's something that I actually noticed, that females are ready. They are ready for what life can give. They are prepared. Now, this does not mean that when they face challenges, they can face them well and everything like that. Yeah. But there seems to be a deliberate attempt by society to help women. But on the other side, on the other hand, it seems as if like men are expected to know everything via spiritual transfer.
To be ready by themselves. In a sense.
There are no institutions that help men. There are no institutions that prepare men for life.
Yet the male figure is supposed to be the head of society.
Yes. Yeah. Which people have made that controversial as well, but I think these are things that we'll get to where we're jumping
we're going a bit ahead of ourselves. The subject of our conversation today is the story of Leah.
The story of Leah.
The story of Leah. You know, I remember back in that conference when you introduced your topic, I was like,
this is a men's conference. Why are we talking about Leah?
I mean, this guy was. What's he all about? You know, this is a men's conference. I was like, did he mistake
the men's conference for the females?
The men's conference. Yeah. So I mean, I think we'll dive right into it. Why the story of Leah?
The reason why we chose Leah as one of the central figures in this message is I need you to understand how powerful and iconic this woman is, Leah. Do you know the purpose why God called Abraham? Is because God called Abraham so that Abraham would be a father, but would be a father to who? Would be a father to the whole world by faith. But when we talk in the physical sense, he is the father of Israel.
Yes.
Right. And of course in other nations, the Ishmaelites as well, but we want to focus on Israel, which is the seed, the promise.
Yes, the child of promise.
The child of promise through Isaac. And then we go, Isaac has two children that we know of, that's Jacob and Esau. Great. And Jacob is the one with the promise.
Yes.
So he goes.
You know, yes. Sorry, let me interject you there. You know, whenever I'm reading that text, I feel it's almost unfair. You know, when God says, "Jacob I have loved,
Esau I have hated." But I'll show you. I think I'll circle back there. When I just finish this, I'm going to show you what God meant there.
I hear you.
So here's Jacob. He's leaving his home to go to marry from his mother's side.
Yes.
And then he marries Leah.
Okay.
But of course, he wanted to marry Rachel. You know the story.
Yes.
But do you know that Leah is the direct grandmother of Jesus Christ?
Is that so?
And it's not Rachel.
Okay.
Leah gave birth to Judah. And you know that Leah is the grandmother of David, of Solomon. All the kings came from Leah. And Judah, the whole tribe was blessed. Now, when we go to the end of the story with Jesus Christ there, and he dies on the cross and he resurrects and he is God, we see that it is because Leah was married to Jacob that we are here today, speaking words of salvation. So this woman was iconic. This woman was powerful.
I hear you.
But my question is, was her power obvious in her generation? No.
Okay. All right.
Leah was one of the women who struggled the most in her generation.
I know. And you know, even if we were to introduce her like I'm about to do now, you know, when you hear the name Leah, you think, okay, that was Laban's, in quotes, unwanted daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thank you very much for highlighting that.
You know, her eyes were, you know, they say her eyes were what? You know,
her eyes were. They say that her eye, she had a lazy eye. That's what other people would say.
Yes, you know, you think, Leah, the wife to Jacob the supplanter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You think, Leah, the daughter of Laban, the treacherous, you know, or fraudulent father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, when you hear her name, you almost think of all the negatives that seem to be, in quotes again, highlighted in the story of her life. But you're bringing in another side of the coin, is it right?
Yeah. That when we look back, she's an awesome
in retrospect.
In retrospect, you realize that this is actually the woman of destiny. Now, I want you to see why Leah lived the life she lived. The answer is really simple. It is the men around her who failed her constantly. And when we study the life of Leah, we begin to see the places where men failed and are still failing today.
So the story of Leah is not necessarily about Leah per se.
Per se, yeah. We are talking about the systems that failed her. But I also want to highlight something. We are not here to highlight men's failures. We are going to talk about the traps that lay in wait for every man and the choices they have to make to overcome those traps.
No, I hear you. We're going to give a prescription, as it were.
Yeah, to give a prescription is, I think that's the right way to actually put it. But let's answer your question. Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. God does not exist in time. God is beyond time.
Of course,
he's the creator of time. So God is saying, when he saw everything that was going to happen, when he saw how Jacob acted and how Esau acted before they were born,
he knows the end from the beginning.
He knows the end from the beginning. So he looked and he said, after seeing their lives, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. It's not that God's hatred
is premeditated.
is premeditated and caused Esau to act in a certain way.
Oh no,
it's God who looked at everything and said, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. But let's circle back to Leah. We just had to take a detour there.
No, definitely. So, I'll be picking from some of the notes that you preach, you know.
Yeah,
and you know, the story of Leah, but we're going to talk about them, how the world handles, how it looks at men, how it molds them, as it were, if I can put it like that. You know, and you you mentioned one very controversial, but I thought it was an interesting point. And you say that there seemed to be a conspiracy to destroy man in this world today.
I have a lot to say about that.
And you actually had scriptural references to beg this.
Yeah, I think one of the scriptures that we can actually quote there. I think I can give you 1 Samuel chapter 25 verse 22.
Yes, the
when
22nd
people
verse.
were fighting against nations and everything, they would say, and so let's destroy every man. They would catch the women and make them captive, but men they would kill.
There and there,
they didn't joke with men.
No negotiations, and it didn't matter how old.
Didn't matter how old they'd kill. Even if it was a baby, a man, they killed. So it says, and so and more, also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave all of them that pertain to him by the morning, any that pisseth against the wall. What that means is, if there is any person who urinates against the wall who will survive, then I would have failed. This is what the person is saying. So which means that when he got into a city, he knew he had to destroy men. So for any society to break down, you need to target the men. Let's go to 1 Kings 21,
21, yes.
It says, behold, I will bring evil upon you, and I will take away your prosperity and posterity, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall. There's the statement again. And him that is shut up.
King James, right?
Yeah, I'm reading from the King James. Forgive me, I was schooled by King James.
It's actually my favorite translation.
Yeah. I actually have people complain about my use of the King James. But what we are saying here is there is a deliberate attack against men. Men are systematic. It's the whole system is working to flush out men. So men are flushed out by war.
Okay.
They are flushed out by economics.
Yes.
They are flushed out by gender confusion, which is the new agenda that is on the line. Because what they do is they try to attack masculinity as if it were a virus in the system.
I hear you.
And how they do it in a very clever way. They attack masculinity by highlighting its failures. And unfortunately, every system, everything on earth has got its negatives and its positives.
Of course.
And if we put a megaphone on the negatives, you might end up fighting something that you do not know is actually positive. I mean, you can fight against democracy and say people chose the wrong president. So should we flash out democracy? No, that's not it.
Yes,
we can fight against capitalism and we say, there are people who are becoming billionaires and becoming drug lords
at the expense
of the poor. So should we flash out the system of government? Of course not. So there is a trick that is available now that says masculinity is poison. But that's wrong. Masculinity is the pillar of society. It is men taking their place.
Backbone.
It is the backbone. Absolutely. And as it is the backbone, we need to be careful not to fall into the trap of people who say that there shouldn't be a backbone. If men take their place, they empower women to take theirs.
Please say that again.
If men take their place, if men took their place, they would naturally empower women to take their own place.
You brought to mind the words of one of the generals of our time, Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yes, great man of
when
God.
Purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
I love that. So you see, what is happening is society is creating dysfunctional men. And when men become dysfunctional, they say it's their masculinity that is dysfunctional. But that's actually wrong. It's because they've actually been, their masculinity has been destroyed. So therefore they are manifesting what they are being fed by the system.
I think as a follow-through statement from the one that I just said, whenever Miles Monroe would be talking about this whole issue of purpose,
yeah,
he mentions the whole idea that when something does not function for the purpose or in the manner that it is made to function, it malfunctions.
Yes.
So it's functioning, but it's functioning wrongly.
Yes.
Which is exactly what the male person, the male man is doing in our 21st century.
Absolutely.
Men are functioning, but they are malfunctioning.
Yes.
Okay, rather, let me say most men are malfunctioning.
All right.
And mainly it's because there's not really been, like you were saying earlier, an institution or an intentional will to school men on what it means to be male men, what it takes to be a male figure in society, especially given the pressures.
And we also can't even ignore the rise of, besides the gender confusion, is also the rise of lesbians and gays and everything, which, if you notice, there are elements of women who try to become men, but that's very little. It's mostly men who dress up to be women. So when you see, when we drain that from society, we wake up the next morning and we're saying, we don't know why our society is that, but we moved the pillars. How can we not expect the building to fall?
Shifted the goalposts.
Yeah.
How can you expect to score?
Yeah, you can't. You can't expect to score.
When you mentioned about this whole feminism and LGBT, recently I was just shaking my head, when I was reading a topic on a certain radio show.
Yes.
And they were discussing about the feminization of the black man.
Oh, that sounds deep.
It is. And the conversation really was.
Yes.
It really was. But I just could figure how bad we have gotten to the point that there's an agenda to feminize
the black man. Yeah. So you have these artists like Lil Nas X coming out. These are popular artists, and they're coming out and they are saying, they are gay and they are wearing dresses and stuff. And please do understand, I really want to go deep there, because we would easily be interpreted as if we are against feminism.
No, I hear you.
Feminism is actually a very good cause, because they are defending women who have been abused, but not abused by masculinity. They are defending women who have been abused by false masculinity, because true masculinity preserves,
and it empowers the female.
It empowers the female,
like you said earlier,
to play their role, and to play it in full. Now let's go to Leah and begin to identify the women, the men that surrounded Leah. Let's talk about the first one. Yeah, the first one I think we'll talk about is
his father.
Is the father, but we might not even start there. Let's start with Esau.
All right, okay.
Esau. A lot of people would not know that there's a link between Esau and Leah. But you must understand that Esau is the one who created the whole chain, because the Bible says Isaac and Rebekah, that's the mother and father of Esau, they grieved in their hearts because Esau loved the pagan women who were around him, and he married the women, and they caused sorrow to Isaac and Rebekah. That's what Esau did. Let me show you the ripple effect. The ripple effect is that after the blessing was taken by Jacob, Jacob had to go. And when he went there, he chose Rachel. But I have a question. Since the blessing was supposed to belong to Esau, if Esau had gone to his mom's side of the family, he was going to choose Leah, because it was always Leah's destiny to be married by the person who carried the seed. So Esau started off by falling into lust, that is, loving the pagan women around him, and number two, rejecting a promise and a vision by not valuing it. Those are the two problems that men face.
Please say them again. Say them again.
That is, number one, not valuing a promise that is on your life. And number two, falling into lust. I can go deep with that one. Because do you know that there is a system, an assault against men to make men fall out of love with vision and fall in love with coping? When a person has a vision, they are doing all they can to achieve God's purposes. And they know they are here for something, to manifest something. Those are the default settings of a man.
Okay, all right.
But there is societal pressure to live for the moment, to say, I need to mix this and that. We need to eat this. I need to cope. Let me run around. But most men would run around now to survive, but they don't run around to thrive.
Pastor Keith.
Yeah.
Question: I am a man. I'm a product of a single mother. Let's say my daddy. Okay, let me just paint a bit of a decent picture. Let's just say my father passed on while I was still say maybe 9 years old. I was still doing my primary. And I grew up being raised by a single mother, and the economy wasn't so kind on us, and for us to survive, my mother ended up doing all that was necessary for our survival. And as I grew up, all the societal pressures, from home and society, they got me to a place whereby when I was conscious enough, or when I was old enough to make conscious decisions, I was not in a place to even know that a man should have a vision.
All right. Great.
How then do I, you know what I mean? Is it, or in a sense, is it my fault that I neglected the promise on my life, when in the first place I didn't even know, that a man is supposed to have a promise? I'm not born in church. I haven't been groomed in a setting where this whole promise upon your life is mentioned more often. You know what I mean?
Great. I love the quality of your question, because it's a really practical question. But here's my answer. A person may not be raised in an atmosphere that says a man should have a vision.
Okay.
But a person has a vision. What you lacked is the knowledge that you should have one. But it doesn't mean you don't have one. Okay. Because church, the role that church plays is a role for clarity. It makes it clear. But it's the prerogative of every man to be born with a seed inside them. Even when they are not told that they're supposed to have a seed within them, they have a seed.
I hear you.
And they know
they approach
that they actually have a seed. Right? They actually know that they have a seed inside them. Okay. So this is not something that is taught. When it is taught in the context of clarity, of clarifying or narrowing down your seed. But each and every single person has a seed. And some seeds they grow and then they are corrupted. So they are a resemblance of what God originally wanted them to be, but they are not in the right place. So it's not really about how you grew up or where you grew up, but it is about acknowledging that God put something inside you, whether you are a church boy or you are not a church boy. It would be great for you to be a church boy. It would be great for you after you make conscious decisions to make the decision to be and to fellowship in a church. It would be great. But it's not always your background. But we're concerned with your front ground more than your background. You make a plan, and you know that inside you, you are bearing a seed. You're carrying something.
So we have already started writing down the prescription. So from what I'm picking from what you're saying, point number one, or let me say drug number one on the prescription, every man is born with a vision.
Yes, every man is born with a vision. What is really a vision? Sometimes I feel like we use words that are hazy.
Okay.
A vision simply means a picture of the future based on the potential you have inside you.
Purpose and pictures.
Yes, purpose and picture. You have a purpose and you have a picture.
Okay.
So every man is born with that.
All right.
Even Adolf Hitler had that. And
I hear you.
even and if you look at if we grew up in the rap music era, almost every hip hop artist in our era grew up like that. The father is not available. They are raised by their mothers, but inside there's a vision.
I like the example that you used of Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Not that I like him as a person, but that his manifesto, Mein Kampf, Mein Kampf, they actually say it was his diary. Eh?
Yeah.
Those were the thoughts, and the thoughts that he would write down as he grew when he was seeing, the rich Jews and the whatever,
all that stuff,
and during his poverty, and he was writing all those, things down. And later on, they become a manifesto.
Exactly. So these are the seeds that we're talking about that end up being corrupted and not reflecting how God wants it to really be. That means that's a huge mind. That's an excellent mind that he had, but then it was corrupted because he didn't have that relationship with God.
I hear you. Second question: how then do I get to do I get to formulate my vision, if you can put it like that?
All right. To formulate your vision,
because remember, we are saying there are not enough institutions that are there to precisely deal with this.
Great. So the first thing that I would tell you is, even though there aren't enough institutions out there, the institutions are increasing. Like this podcast is an institution.
It is.
That is
very
actually
much.
that is actually
yes, sir.
moving. But then a man should be born with the ability to look inside, to know that inside them they have something. They write down what they think they have and what they think they see. It doesn't have to be clear, but you write down your potential.
Please break it down for me. What does it mean for me to look inside of myself?
Okay.
What does it mean? How do I even do that?
That is called introspection.
Okay. All right.
Introspection is when you take stock of who you are, your potential,
where I'm coming from,
your abilities,
where I'm going. Yes.
Your giftings.
Yes.
Actually, real success is mastery of self, to the point where you really know yourself in and in, which is why God would describe himself as I am that I am, which means he has known himself to that much. So you understand that the place where you're going to is the manifestation of the things that are inside you.
So one of the first questions I'll ask you, the listener, is, as a male man in our society, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you know yourself?
Yeah.
How much do you know yourself?
So that is a valid question, because there's evidence to show that Esau didn't really get what it was all about. Look at him. He actually sold. People say that Jacob cheated Esau. But can I show you that?
In actual fact,
he didn't.
Not really. I mean,
he didn't. Jacob offered Esau a deal. You give me
your birthright.
Your birthright, I'll give you soup.
And here Esau's response.
And Esau says, what does a birthright benefit me? So he has no knowledge of himself and the vision before him. Men struggle when they don't know vision. But Jacob was a man of vision. He knew.
Already.
So Esau made a vow then and sold his birthright. So what caused the blessing on the day, years later, when it was time for the blessing?
Yes.
What caused Esau to fail to be blessed when he had gone to hunt was simply spiritual things manifesting that happened way back.
The law of attraction.
It was now happening now, because this was something settled in the realm of the spirit. And now you're trying to cheat. That day Esau was trying to steal Jacob's blessing.
The spiritual world is always stronger than
the physical world. When things are done spiritually, they just manifest here on earth.
The things that we see in the physical realm are a product
of the spirit world. So now let's circle back to Esau. We said 2 challenges.
Yes.
Number 1, the challenge of lacking vision. That is not knowing himself. That is also beyond not just knowing himself, not taking stock and not valuing who he is. That's number 1. Second challenge is lust, coping. Coping with what is there and lasting for what is available. So he runs to marry these women. I want you to look at Esau from that perspective. He just goes to marry the nearest women. He doesn't want to go through the process, listen to his parents to go choose the right wife. He just wants what's there.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification. Now, look at his method of sustenance. Jacob. What does Jacob do? He's a quiet man, says the word of God, dwelling in tents. So what does he do? He takes care of his flock. Even up to the end of his life, he takes care of flocks. Flocks. He's patient. And he's taking care of flocks. Esau, on the other hand, he hunts.
He's a hunter.
So what he does is he goes out, sees what's available, kills it, and brings it home.
He's a hustler.
He's a hustler. So, exactly. That's how we would say it in Zimbabwe. But can you see the error there? So I get this feeling that people are they magnify the hustling ability, and it's not wrong.
Of course.
Hustling is generally the ability to see an opportunity and capitalize on that opportunity. But then
profit.
Real hustlers. They do that, but after they do that, they realize that this is not a lifestyle. So they start building systematic things that produce results.
They hustle up into a flock, in a sense.
They hustle to a flock. Now, Esau hustles for props, for eating, and for lust. Even his women, he hustled them.
No, I hear you.
So now, if you're a man and you're listening to this podcast, I'm talking about Leah, and I'm talking about the man that failed her. And Esau is the first man to fail Leah because he could have been married to Leah if he had embraced his vision. So always fix your vision. Look inside you, write your potential. Think of the greatest picture that you can think of your potential at your peak.
Take inventory.
You need to take inventory of that. Then secondly, as we have mentioned, stay away from cheap lust. It's okay to go look for opportunity, hustle out your opportunity, but know that you can't live a life of hustling.
Hustling should not be an end in itself.
It's not an end in itself.
It should be a means to an end, which is a better end.
And people suffer. The hustlers always struggle because hustling money feels sweet. Usually, it's a quick hustle that produces money.
No, yes.
But the reason why they spend it so carelessly is because they think the hustle was quick, but it wasn't quick because it took you 6 months without a hustle. Then a hustle came for an hour and money came suddenly, and you didn't take stock of the 6 months that you didn't get the hustle. You took stock of one day. So you thought that one day would repeat, but it doesn't. So that's the challenge of the hustle.
Time and chance happen
to them all. So that's Esau. Let's talk about the other men.
I know. Sorry, before we go there, I like the point that when you said Jacob was a tender of sheep and flocks. It just painted the picture more clear that indeed he was somebody who took stock. Because you can't be a shepherd and you're not taking notice and taking care of your sheep. Every one of them.
So this is Esau priding himself in physical strength. He's a gifted man with agility to shoot. Look, this was going to work fine with his vision if he hadn't neglected his vision. But that was his struggle. Cheap lust.
The second man we're going to look at, I guess you'll have to lead the conversation.
But where would you, I think let's talk about the second man who failed. I think let's go back to the father that you mentioned.
Okay, Laban.
Laban.
Treacherous.
Treacherous.
Fraudulent.
And you see the same characteristics of Esau on him.
I hear you.
But this is a smarter hustler.
Sophisticated hustler.
Yes. So he comes in. And did you see how he greeted Jacob? When he saw Jacob for the first time, this is what the Bible actually says. Go read it. It actually says, when he saw the gold, he said, "Come in, you blessed of the Lord." Yeah. So this is a person who's driven
sweet tongue.
Sweet tongues, So what I would call this person is Laban is the user. He doesn't build relationships with people. And a man should have the ability to build relationships with people.
Nurture relationships.
To nurture relationships. And to Laban, there's a lot of a lot of selfishness. So Jacob comes, and Jacob loves Rachel. It's natural for Jacob to love Rachel because Jacob didn't have the promise on his life originally. So that was the wife he was going to marry anyway. It's natural. He's not attracted.
As if in course by destiny.
Yes, it was by destiny. But the problem is that Leah's real husband
is MIA.
Is missing in action. Yeah, and then so Leah has the anointing to be the grandmother of Jesus. By the way, and here comes Jacob, and Laban says, "Don't worry, just work for me for 7 years, and Rachel is yours." 7 whole years.
The number of what? Perfection, right?
The number of perfection, yeah. That means he was really expected to do a lot of work. And this is 2021, which means that he would have really started his work around 2014 thereabout, or 2015. And there he's working. And by the way, 2015, Donald Trump wasn't even in office. So that's how you'd know. That's a long time.
That's why you see me laughing. Because I'm trying to think 2014, what was I even doing in 2014? I think I just finished my undergrad degree and I just returned from college.
Now think about how far back that is. And he worked for 7 whole years. And finally, after years of hard work, his hands are cut from working. He's done everything.
He's thinking, I've arrived.
And
Ebenezer.
And then the wedding is held, and what do you know?
Boom.
It's Leah. And that is such a trickery. And here's where the trickery is. He said that in our land, it is the firstborn who is married and not the secondborn. Why is Jacob only hearing this after 7 years?
Imagine.
And Rachel didn't even tell Jacob that this is what happens, because Rachel didn't even know. It's the first time they are hearing that law, because Laban is manipulating. He's formulating a constitution. But look at the trick.
The Labanic system.
The Labanic system is the world system. It's built on selfishness. Now watch. Laban then says, okay, you really love Rachel, but unfortunately I can't do that. But I have a way for you. You can have Rachel right now.
Let's fix this.
Let's fix this. I understand. Here's Rachel. You can have Rachel. Where are you? Yeah, there's Rachel. You can take her. But you have to work for me another 7 years. But this time, I'll give you Rachel first.
No, for sure.
For sure. There she is. But work for me.
You have my word, eh?
Another 7 years.
Jesus.
And so Laban is a picture of selfishness. And a lot of men are driven by this. They believe in exploiting. And men exploit their families, exploit their wives, exploit their children, because it's self-gratification. These are the men that walk away from homes at the bat of an eye just decide that, okay, I'm fed up, I don't want this, I'm going to another
and
home.
they walk away just like that.
Just like that. And I know many people that have counseled that had to deal with that challenge. Women were to deal with the challenge. I actually know of a man that I grew up admiring, you know. This is a man who, like, he was very strong in the transport system. I loved his story. He was a mechanic, and then he bought a little minibus, and then he bought another one, and then he bought another one. And the last time we heard, he had something like 64 or 65 buses. And, you know, he was wealthy. This was a mechanic. Everybody loved that story. Until one day, I'm talking to his daughter, and the daughter says, oh, my dad left us about 3 years ago to go start another family with somebody else. See, this is the error that men make. They are driven by selfishness. They manipulate people and they manipulate systems, and everything is about them.
But I mean, can you blame me? Because, you know, as I'm growing up, these are the characters of male figures that are being amplified by social media.
Right.
You know, the movies, you know, the
promiscuity
you name it. Yes, you know, selfishness is amplified left, right, center. You know, that's the true definition of being a man.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't look back. You don't think twice. You know, you're not affectionate. You know?
That is the image that society is pushing. Then afterwards, society turns around and says men are hurting women. So now we want to begin to fix that.
Yes, sir. Yes,
when
sir.
success comes, a man should never, ever, ever be selfish. A man should know how to cultivate relationships and to grow people.
I hear you.
A man doesn't just grow money. He grows people. He grows a happy wife.
But I guess these are some of the qualities that I will have to cultivate as I am on my way to making it.
Yes.
Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Because if I don't do that now
absolutely.
in the process, you know, when I'm on top, how then am I supposed to act like this way when I haven't been? You know what I mean?
I actually don't know how much time we have, because I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that when we talk about Jacob. You just give me a signal and say, you know, Pastor, circle back to that. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm looking at our time, and I'm you know, I'm surprised time is flying like this, because I think we only have maybe, let's say, 10 to about 15 minutes. But I guess we'll have to do a second follow-up segment with this one. Yes, I don't know. If you'd ask me, let's not touch on Jacob today.
Okay.
Let's touch on Jacob in our next session.
Okay.
In the last 10 minutes, I don't know how you're gonna, or which point are you going to address, so that we just tie this up for today.
So I'm going to leave out Jacob and Reuben. Because Reuben is also the son of Leah.
Matrix.
Yeah. Reuben did the worst thing. Reuben slept with Jacob's, that's his father's, and he slept with his father's servant. But this is not just an ordinary servant. This is a servant who Jacob had children with. So what Reuben actually did is he slept with the mother of some of his brothers. And we're going to talk about that. But
these are all in the life of Leah.
These are all in the life of Leah. Leah was surrounded by dysfunctional men. Men who did not value her. But when you look back, it wasn't Rachel that had the anointing. Oh, can I tell you about Rachel?
Please do.
Please do. Rachel was a great woman.
Yes.
The Bible says she was beautiful.
Beautiful. Pombi.
Yes, that's what we would say. Rachel was like that. But look at it. The Bible says, as they were about to leave, Rachel, she took her father's gods and she hid them. And then she pretended to be on her monthly cycle to keep the gods. And she caused Laban to follow after Jacob with the intention to kill.
Yes, it was a serious pursuit.
That was actually a serious pursuit. And they couldn't find them. But Rachel, finally. Now, Rachel doesn't understand vision, because It's not about you, Rachel. This is the nation of Israel about to be born. And you, as the mother, cannot bring in paganism in the story of Jesus Christ. You can't bring it in. And you see that
it's taboo.
Rachel died while giving birth.
Yes, it was.
And they hadn't even arrived. And you can actually tell that that would probably be the reason why she lost her life.
If I recall correctly, her dad, didn't he pronounce a curse of some sort on, or
because
in the story, if I recall correctly,
the dad actually received a dream, and God said, "Don't say anything." And the dad was so close to releasing a curse, and God had to intervene to stop it, because had the curse been released, so now Rachel didn't make it.
Shame.
Rachel didn't make it.
Eh?
And you know what? What is respected? When you read the Bible, you always hear that David slept with his fathers. You hear Solomon slept with his fathers. And you know what? Abraham and Sarah were buried by the oaks of Mamre.
Yes.
Mamre was a person who owned land, was Abraham's friend. And Isaac and Rebekah were buried there. And it's Jacob who was buried next to Leah. Jacob didn't die beside Rachel. It was beside Leah. All the time it was Leah. So here's my point. Men are struggling, and there are institutions out there that are sent to destroy men. But I want to speak to men and say, it's easy for you to feel as if, you know, all society is against you. Like even when we're talking this podcast, it's very difficult for a man not to feel attacked.
I hear you.
But this is not a platform to attack you. This is a platform for you to open your eyes and begin to see. Begin to see the potential you have. Begin to see what God placed inside you. You have a vision. It's inside you. You can do it. You can manifest it. And you have to constantly see it. Take stock of what God put inside you. Stay away from lust. That's number 2. Stay away from lust, hustling, and quick fixes. Everything is good in its way. Can I tell you something? What is lust? Lust is sexual attraction.
Yes.
As a human being, in its rightful place, sexual attraction is great. That's what leads you to marriage. Yes. Hustling is great. It's what leads you to build wealth generationally. Quick fixes are great because they can show you how to deal with a solution very quickly. All these things are great in small proportions, provided they are leading you somewhere.
Used in the right context.
In the right context. That's absolutely true. But when you begin to make these things a lifestyle, you are not going to survive as a man. You're not going to be at the peak of your potential as a man.
You shortchange yourself.
You shortchange the potential inside you. You are a seed bearer. And then lastly, do not be a manipulator and live a life of selfishness, because whatever you do for yourself that disadvantages people, it destroys them. You are a man. Whatever you do, it multiplies. So there are people whose lives are going to be damaged by your decisions.
They might not be directly, but
sometimes it's your children. Sometimes it's your relative. Sometimes it's your wife. Sometimes it's just that little boy who lives in the same neighborhood as you, seeing you walking in wealth but divorcing your wife and hitting her. You are creating ripple effects upon ripple effects. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to talk about today. Fix your vision, stay away from lust and quick fixes, and lastly, build and nurture relationships. Build people. Don't be toxic. So those are my words for every man.
From my end, one principle that kept jumping back to me. When you look at Leah and Rachel, remember Paul says, henceforth, from now onwards, know we no men after the flesh.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
After the spirit.
I love that, because what it is saying is have the discernment to know the spiritual aspect of everyone. When you are surrounded by people as a man, don't damage people, because some people are carrying potential. When you know people after the flesh, you manipulate them, you abuse them, because Laban didn't know Jacob after the flesh.
Yes, sir.
He knew him after the flesh, but he didn't know him after the spirit. So your task is to look closely and know people after the spirit as a man.
I think we'll round up. Although I feel I still have a lot to say. But
Yeah, me too. I couldn't believe that time would fly so fast.
I know, because there's, just to rebut this last point that we raised. In making decisions, in making conclusions, especially life-altering decisions, permanent decisions, do not make decisions basing your judgment on the things that you see in the physical. You know what I mean? Do not know men after the flesh, but after the spirit. You know what I mean? I'm thinking if only Esau had understood
that principle.
Yes, this whole birthright thing. If he had looked at the status quo in the spiritual, he would have seen that this hunger is temporary.
It's temporal.
It's temporal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If only all the other characters that are in our discussion today, if they had looked at Leah, not in the physical,
but in the spirit.
You know what I mean? This is Mazwi Inc. It's been a pleasure. You have a good life. Until our next episode.